Hello friends, welcome back. I am in my living room today because my room is like a sauna in the heat and it's nearly 30 degrees today, so I would have boiled alive if I tried to film in my room, and that's also the reason my face is looking quite dishevelled today. So we're just going to move past that and get on into the video. Today I decided I'd film a video about my A-level experience. As you may or may not know, I've just finished my A-levels. My last exam was about a week ago and I just thought I'd do a little roundup. I just thought it'd be interesting to film and look back on in the future. So to start off with, I decided to move away from my high school to do my A-levels, and I went to a college rather than a sixth form. This was just because there was a better choice of courses for me at the college that I chose rather than at my high school sixth form. So I ended up doing classics, which was AQA exam board, English literature, which was Edexcel, and film, which was WJUC. Sorry if I keep looking down here, I've got my notes written for the video. Overall, I found A-levels extremely difficult and extremely challenging and quite stressful as well at times, and took up my entire 2 years. I literally have not been doing anything else. Of course, I don't know my results yet, so I don't know how I did in my A-levels, but I will find that out on the 16th of August on results day, and I will post a video for you to let you know if you care. If not, oh well. First of all, I did English literature, and this was probably the most difficult of my 3 A-levels. I went into college thinking I definitely wanted to do English and I definitely wanted to do it at uni. I had my uni picked out, my course picked out, everything. Like, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and basically a few weeks into the course I was like, yep, this is not for me. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the content to an extent, but just the stress and the pressure of the entire course just completely ruined English for me in a way. I had amazing teachers for both of the years. I really enjoyed my lessons most of the time, but just the way that the course was set up and how repetitive it got sometimes really kind of put me off doing English any further. For English, there are 4 components. It was a linear course, so it had been reformed into taking all the exams at the end of A2. I had 3 exams and then 1 coursework module. The first exam was drama, which we studied Hamlet by Shakespeare and The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. There was 1 essay question on each of the plays. We basically spent a term doing Ernest at the start of the 2 years, so in year 12, just right as I moved to college, and then didn't do anything else until the start of year 13, where we studied Hamlet for the whole year. And I don't really understand, because yes, Ernest was worth about 10 marks less in the exam, and Hamlet was definitely a lot more challenging. Because we never got the chance to go back to Ernest at the end of the 2 years, I feel like I might have suffered a bit in my exam from that. I don't know, I guess we'll find out. I found that I really liked The Importance of Being Earnest. I thought it was quite a funny play. I usually didn't tend to read comedies, so maybe I will more in the future, I don't know. I found it quite entertaining, to be honest. And the exam questions weren't too bad in the exam, so I'm not too mad about it. Hamlet as well, I love Shakespeare so much, and I was so looking forward to studying Hamlet at the start of my college course when I found out that it was something we were going to be doing, and I had an amazing teacher for it as well. We actually had the head of drama from our college as our English teacher, which was amazing, obviously because it was a play and he loves Shakespeare as well, so that was really good. I found the lessons relatively okay for those, but it was my first lesson on a Monday, so sometimes I just wouldn't be feeling it. For Hamlet as well, we had to study critical opinions for the exam, and I found that really difficult. I found it so hard to memorise what each critic had said. Like, I was fine with telling you, like, oh, there's one that talks about Hamlet being mad, but then I wouldn't be able to tell you which one it was, and I think I was okay in the exam. I don't think I messed any of that up when it came down to it, but I found that so difficult. Moving on to the second exam, which was prose, so we studied 2 texts for that one, and that was A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini and Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Oh my god, this was long. A Thousand Splendid Suns is actually a really good book. I read it before we started college so that I was prepared, as they'd suggested that we did. I enjoyed it, it was fine, but Wuthering Heights, oh wow. I know some people in my college that really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people that hated it a lot more than I did, but I just didn't particularly like it. I found it so difficult to read. I just couldn't, it was so hard. For that exam, we only had an hour to answer on both of the novels and compare them, which I thought was really, really difficult. I don't see how you can write extensively about 2 novels in an hour. I just don't see how it can be done well, and that's another thing that we studied in year 12, so we didn't do any of that exam in year 13. We did both of the novels in year 12 with one of our teachers and just didn't come back to it in year 13 really, apart from about 1 lesson I think, which again, I think probably hurt my chances a bit in the exam, but I suppose some of it just has to be done and left because there's not enough time to do it all in year 13. And then the third exam was poetry, for which we studied an anthology called Poems of the Decade and another one called English Romantic Verse. There are just way too many poems. We shouldn't be expected to study that many poems, in my opinion. Like, I just don't see how that it's fair for you to memorise. I think there was 20 poems for one section and maybe 28 for another, or something roughly around that. So I don't know how you can be expected to remember nearly 50 poems to answer on 3 in the exam. Like, that just annoys me so much because I put so much work into analysing all the poems and remembering context, and I use probably about 10% of my knowledge in the exam, and that just really annoys me because I don't see how that exam is a fair test of what you've learned over the last year or last 2 years even, and that just is something that really annoys me. But I guess that's just Edexcel's choice, but I really don't agree with it, if I'm honest. Those were the exam components of English Lit, and overall I found it quite stressful for the amount of content that we had to remember, just with all of those poems, all of the key extracts from the books that we had to remember. Don't get me wrong, it was an open book exam, so that's great. Like, you had it there to do your quotes with. I just found it really difficult to actually remember everything we needed. Like, obviously you can't just go in with no knowledge of the books whatsoever because you will not have time to go through and find all the quotes that you need. I didn't hate English, but I didn't love it either. It's just something that I did because I'd already signed up and I couldn't really drop it at the end of year 12 because I didn't have anything else to pick back up and I didn't have an AS in it or anything, so I just carried on with it. But I'm very glad I didn't decide to study it at uni because I feel like it would just be a bit too intense. Don't get me wrong, I love it, but I'm very specific about the aspects of English that I love. Like, I love plays so much and I enjoy reading novels as well, but poetry and certain types of novels and stuff I just have no interest in, so I feel like it's just not something I should be doing at uni. So there was also a coursework component to the English Lit A-level, and wow, I found that so stressful. I think that was one of the most difficult bits for me of the whole 2 years of the entire A-level experience. I just found it really, really hard. I did The Great Gatsby and then we could choose a book to compare it to, so I did The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. I just found it so stressful, the whole thing. Like, we had to basically just choose any topic that we wanted. There was no real guidance on that at all, and then you just had to write a whole essay from that, which I get is what you'll be doing at uni and stuff, but I just don't think that the way it was organised at our college was very good because it felt like we had ages to plan it and then about a week to actually write the essay. It was probably much longer, but in my head that's how it felt. But I just found it really stressful trying to make points that were different enough from each other but still cohesive to the main point in the title. I don't even know if that was a sentence. I just found it really difficult and stressful trying to plan all of that and write all of that and do the citations, referencing and all that. But overall I found it still very rewarding to have that finished essay at the end of it, but then again, I don't know how I feel about that when I actually know how I've done on it because I'm not too confident. So yeah, that was English literature. That was the first A-level that I decided to do. It was one of the main reasons that I went to the college that I went to because their English course was so much better than the one that my high school was offering, in my opinion. I just felt that the texts were better, and yeah, to be honest, I just wanted to change from my high school. Apologies if the background's just shifted. My camera has decided to stop connecting to my laptop for some reason, so I've just had to reset everything up. Anyway, continuing with the video. So the second A-level I decided to study was Classical Civilizations, or Classics, which is the reason basically why I moved to that college. There was no other college around me that offered that course, so it was something I was really interested in, and basically the reason why I moved. I went on the open evening and just felt that it was so interesting and I really just wanted to study it. There were 4 exams across the 2 years in total for this, and the exam board was AQA. Unfortunately, this course has now ended, and that makes me sad because I thought it was a really good course. It's now ended because of the A-level reforms. So in AS we had 2 exams. One was on the Iliad and the other was on Women in Athens and Rome, and at A2 we had 2 exams, and one was on Greek tragedy and the other one was on Alexander the Great. So first of all, the Iliad module from AS, I found it really interesting, to be honest. I thought it was really enjoyable. My teacher taught it so well. Both of my teachers across the 2 years were amazing. They taught the module so well, they really knew what they were doing. The Iliad I thought was really interesting. We essentially just read the whole book, well, about 3/4 of the book, I think. There were a few just general knowledge marks, and then the rest were essay questions based on themes in the book. The exams were quite stressful because they were only an hour and a half each, and there were about 65 marks, I think, so it was quite difficult to try and fit in all the knowledge in that short amount of time, but it was doable, it was fine. And then the other module was Women in Athens and Rome, and I found that more challenging than the Iliad, I think. It was a lot of source-based questions, so we were given, I don't know how many sources. One of them was a play, a few were law court speeches, one was a gravestone inscription, just a few sources and things from the ancient world, and we had to try and determine what women's lives were like and how they were treated in ancient Athens and ancient Rome. So I found the ancient Greece section of the course a lot less challenging. I still thought the sources were difficult to understand sometimes, but on the whole they were easier to remember than the Roman side. We covered, I think, more content on the Roman side, I don't really know, but I think we just had less time to go over it overall, so I found it a little bit more challenging. And then between AS and A2, our college were amazing and took us on a trip to Greece. We travelled all through Greece. We went to Athens, Sparta, Delphi. I've forgotten everything. I'll leave the places in a list here so you can see if you're interested. We basically just went and did a whole week on like a little road trip around Greece and saw all the ancient sites we'd been told about all year, and it was amazing. I think that really helped my experience with that course. I think it made it so much more enjoyable just knowing that I'd seen the places, or I was going to see the places that we were talking about all the time. I found it just really interesting, and it made me appreciate the course a lot more than I already did. And I think it made me enjoy A2 a lot more as well, even though it was very stressful, much more so than AS, I think, just because the content was a lot more challenging, but I still enjoyed it. Again, my teachers were great for this course. So in A2 we did Greek tragedy and we studied 2 Sophocles plays and 2 Euripides plays. So we did Oedipus and Antigone, and then Hippolytus and Medea. Again, I found them really interesting. I enjoyed reading them. As I've said, I enjoy reading plays so much. Yeah, that was something I really enjoyed. It was just, again, the exams are only an hour and a half. Fitting all the knowledge in was really difficult, and I kind of struggled with it in the exam, but I think they went okay. Again, everything that I'm saying, I'm literally just, I think they went okay. I'm not sure, I'll find out. But that's all I can say at the minute. I think they were okay. Not the best, but not the worst. We basically just studied the 4 plays all year. We did like half a term on each one, and then we had a half a term left for revision, which was so helpful because I found that revising in class that way was a lot more productive than, say, in English, where we just didn't have any time to go back to the year 12 stuff at the end of year 13, but I think that's just due to the amount of content they make you learn for English because it's ridiculous. And then my final classics module was Alexander the Great, so we studied Arrian and Plutarch's accounts of his life, and essentially you just had to learn his entire life story from these 2 sources and who said what about him in order to answer the questions in the exam. And wow, that was a lot of content and very stressful to try and remember the differences between the 2. I think I did alright in the end. Again, I've literally just said the same thing. I'm not sure, but I guess we'll find out. So, but yeah, I still really enjoyed it. I loved learning about just one person for the whole year. I thought it was really interesting knowing like little bits about their lives and everything, but at the same time, it was just very stressful with the amount of content that we had to learn. It's literally someone's entire life. So Plutarch did some really interesting accounts and interesting stories, whereas Arrian did 20 pages on how the men moved in a battle, which was very dull and very long, might I add. When you got past those bits, I felt Arrian was still a really good source, and I don't think I'd recommend reading it, but I'm not too mad that we read it for the course. Like, it was fine. It was just very content heavy again. So overall, I really enjoyed classics. I'm glad that I took it. I'm glad that I moved colleges so that I could take it. I found it really interesting, again, really rewarding, even though it was so challenging and so difficult at times when I really just didn't know what was going on and I didn't know what happened in which section of which play. I didn't know where Alexander did this or when he did that. In the end, I figured it all out, I think, so we'll just go with it, it's fine. And then finally, this brings me to my third A-level course, was film studies. This was a WJEC course, which again is changing now because of the reforms. We were the last year to do this course and I'm quite sad about it because it was good, I enjoyed it. Again, this was split into AS and A2. So for AS, we had one exam, which was 2.5 hours long, and we had one coursework component. And then for A2, we had an exam which was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Oh my god, that was long. And again, another coursework component. So for AS, the exam was basically about marketing and then film analysis. So for the first section, you had to analyse marketing campaigns and things about budget. So we looked at Whiplash, Gravity and The World's End. And I'm so glad we did that because Whiplash, after seeing that and studying it, is now one of my favourite films. And I still remember so much from learning about that for my exam. Like, I still remember loads about the marketing. For the second section, we did British horror, I think? No? I don't know if they were British horror or just horror. We studied Creep and 28 Days Later. Again, 28 Days Later is such an amazing film. I enjoyed it so much, and Creep is just so weird and so disgusting. I don't think I'd ever watch it again, but I'm glad I did because it kind of opened my eyes to a different kind of horror movie that I hadn't watched before. And then finally we did sci-fi, I think the module bit was called. So we studied The Matrix and Invasion of the Body Snatchers from, I want to say 1956. It was old, it was quite old. Overall, an enjoyable exam. I didn't do the best on it. I think I got a C overall, and I've been getting A's in class, so I think the pressure of the exam just kind of got to me maybe. But it's fine, I've kind of made up for it with my coursework last year, and hopefully this year will help me again with my exam and my coursework from this year. Hopefully, I really hope it does. The exam wasn't that bad. It was quite an enjoyable exam as far as exams go. I'm not saying I enjoyed it, but it was better than a lot of other exams that I've taken in terms of the content. I really loved the content. And then for the coursework, we had to either make a storyboard or a short film, and I decided to make a short film. I will probably post it on YouTube when I'm allowed to, which I think is after I get my results. Yeah, I made a short film about my dog. It's all very naturey and just pretty, I suppose. We had to do a reflective analysis, which is essentially where you look at your film and explain why you made the choices that you made. So like, I used this kind of lighting because of this, or I used this camera shot because of this, and a whole essay just of that. And then we had to do a micro-analysis, which was just basically an essay doing the exact same thing as the reflective analysis but on someone else's film. So I decided to analyse the opening sequence to As Above, So Below, which was a film from 2014, I think, about I want to say the Philosopher's Stone? Sorcerer's Stone? I don't know. I've forgotten. I haven't watched it in 2 years. So overall, I really enjoyed my first year. I had the most amazing teacher. Unfortunately, I didn't get him in A2, but again, my A2 teacher was still equally amazing. But I just really enjoyed that whole first year. There wasn't a lesson that I didn't enjoy. There wasn't a film that we watched that I didn't really like. I just really enjoyed it, and I was so excited to go into A2 and learn even more about films. Segueing into A2, again, the exam and the coursework. So the exam was again split into 3 questions. So the first section was on empowering women, and we had to study 3 foreign films. So we did Run Lola Run, which is a German film, Nikita, which is a French film, and Pan's Labyrinth, which is Spanish. And in the exam I chose to answer on Nikita and Pan's Labyrinth because I felt they were the 2 that linked together the best and that you could say the most about, so I just decided to focus on those in the exam. And then there were thematic questions about the films essentially. The second part of the exam was about The Spectator, so we studied Seven, Psycho and Silence of the Lambs, and in the exam I decided to do Silence of the Lambs and Seven. And I'm so glad we did this module. I really don't like Seven, but it was better to answer on than Psycho in my opinion. I felt like I could say more about it, but I wasn't really a fan of the film as it goes. Silence of the Lambs, however, I thought was a masterpiece of a film. It makes me so happy to watch, and I'm so glad we watched it in class and I got to study it because I feel like I wouldn't have appreciated it as much if I just watched it on my own. I felt like it gave me such a good understanding of the film, and the techniques they use are so good, and the actors are obviously amazing, and it just makes me really happy overall. Again, there were thematic questions and you just wrote about the 2 films in relation to The Spectator, which I thought was very interesting to work on, finding out like spectator theories and things like that. The third section of the exam was a critical study, so you had to use a film and then relate it to critical opinion and talk about those in your answer. So we did Fight Club, and wow, it is definitely one of my favourite films now. I enjoyed it so much. Usually I don't think that would be the kind of thing that I would watch on my own because I hadn't up until going into class. I just found it so amazing. Again, I thought the techniques and the cinematography, the sound is amazing and the lighting and just everything contributes to the kind of film that it is. There isn't one element that I noticed that just seemed wrong or out of place or that hadn't been thought about or something. Can you tell which subject was my favourite? I really enjoyed studying Fight Club, and again the critics was something I really struggled with. A couple days before the exam I really could not remember who said what about the film, so there was one question which was completely based on the critics and then another one which was based on the film and then using the critic to back up your argument rather than as your whole argument. I ended up doing the second question, but I think I could have probably done a better job on the critics question, but never mind, no point dwelling on it now. Finally, for the A2 coursework, we again made another short film or a script, and I made another short film, which again I'll probably upload at some point in the future. And then we also had to do a small scale research project, which I enjoyed so much. I think it was the thing that I enjoyed most out of my entire A-level experience. I put so much effort into it and so much work. I just really hope that it pays off in the end. Basically had to pick a filmmaker or an actor to focus your project on, and I picked Ingmar Bergman, who is a Swedish director from the 60s to about the 80s, who I studied in an online course I did over the start of year 12. I just decided I'd do it online because I was enjoying film so much. I wanted to do some more, so I did. I'll leave the link for that in the description if anyone's interested. And you basically had to just find a bunch of sources about your chosen director or actor or whatever, basically just make a whole project on them. So then you would make a presentation script, which was essentially a presentation but written down, so it's everything you would say in a presentation about that person. You had to pick 3 focus films, and I chose Wild Strawberries, Through a Glass Darkly and Fanny and Alexander. Basically just had to write about those films and some key scenes in detail and about what people think about the director, what like critics have interpreted his films as meaning. And I don't know, I just found it so rewarding and so enjoyable to actually create. Yeah, that was probably my favourite thing I did in the last 2 years with regards to college work. And I love the fact that that film course was 50% coursework overall, because it takes so much pressure off for the exam. Even though obviously you want to try and do your best, it just made it so much better to have part of it out of the way before the actual exams rolled along. And then finally I also did an EPQ, which is an extended project qualification, and that was from about the first term of year 13 I think that was, and I chose to do it on Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, and basically whether the fame of Johnny Depp impacts upon the success of Tim Burton, and I found that it doesn't actually impact that much. Oh hi, it's my dog. And I found out that essentially he doesn't impact on his success despite his fame and the fact that everyone always associates Tim Burton with Johnny Depp, which I thought was mad. So I really enjoyed doing that again. It was essentially just a big essay that I wrote with a bunch of sources and a bunch of information that I'd found from books and articles and videos, just all about Tim Burton and Johnny Depp, and also statistical analysis and stuff, so like box office figures and everything. I don't know, I really enjoyed that, and I have no idea how I've done on that one at all. I hope it pays off because I put so much work into that again. So yeah, that was my A-level experience. I found that film studies was probably the most rewarding course, which is the one I'm going off to study in university in September. It was actually the one that I picked to do last. I actually only chose to do it about 2 days before I started college because I was originally going to do philosophy, but I'm so glad I changed my mind. I would never have obviously done it at university if I hadn't chosen to do it at A-level. I don't know what I'd be doing now if I wasn't doing film. And then classics, again, I really enjoyed. I thought the trip really aided my appreciation for classics. Even though the courses were very content heavy and very intense, they were very enjoyable at the same time. And then I'd probably say that English was my least favourite of the A-levels, despite what I expected at the start of the 2 years, but I just found that there was too much content and not enough time to write about the stuff in the exams, and I don't think it was very fair on the students and what we were expected to do. And I just feel really sorry for all the people that have got all of their A-level exams at the end of 2 years rather than split into AS and A2. I feel like it takes off so much pressure having half of it finished at the end of year 12 and not having to worry about going back over your year 12 stuff, so my heart really goes out to you if you have all of your exams at the end of year 13, which I think most people do, at least next year onwards. So I guess that just goes to show that I preferred the non-reformed courses to the ones that have been reformed, considering I enjoyed film and classics way more than I enjoyed English. That was my A-level experience overall. I hope you found this video helpful and interesting. If you'd like me to do any revision-based videos or anything else about A-levels apart from my results video, which will definitely be happening, please leave a comment to let me know what you would like me to film, and I will definitely do so. I enjoy talking about A-levels now that they're done. At the time I hated it, but now I don't mind too much because everything's in retrospect. Subscribe for more content based around exams, A-levels, uni definitely when I go off there in September and start preparing for it over the summer. I will leave my Instagram down there as well, so you can go follow me. I post on that quite often. I'm a lot more active on there than I am on any other social media, so if you're gonna follow anywhere, it might as well be there, if you want to, of course. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful and informative and not too much of a rant. I tried to make it not too much of a rant, so fingers crossed that worked. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.